He was always interested in astronomy and cosmology. That was one of his first loves, in fact, and he wanted to study physics and astronomy when he went to college.
He was very fascinated by the stars. He built his own telescope, ground the lenses himself, assembled it, made it work. But he came here to A&M and he realized to make a living, he needed to have a very practical kind of degree. So he got a degree in engineering here.
Even when he was at Texas A&M studying geology, he was trying to figure out how to make money. After he got his geology degree, he became a wildcatter. And so he went out and took the risk and had, through his great scientific knowledge and his good luck and his risk-taking, he struck oil.
George's new company drilled over 400 productive oil and gas wells, making him one of the most successful wildcatters in Texas history.
So you hit some, but you hit a lot more if you're a really good geologist.
Over time, the search intensified for newer energy sources. George thought he could extract natural gas from underground shale formations, but few believed it was worth it.
Even people in his own company were criticizing, saying, "Mr. Mitchell, we've got better things to do with your money."
We tried every conceivable technique of fracturing and trying to improve the production. And they kept telling me, "You waste your time." That's what they kept telling me.
After 17 years of trial and error, he figured out how to extract large amounts of natural gas. It was more than anyone could have imagined.
This development is roughly equivalent historically to the Spindletop oil field discovery, which brought the whole attention of the whole nation to the Texas Gulf Coast as the place to go to find oil. The implications might be that big because it's a whole new way to recover oil and gas that had been passed over even though we knew where it was.
He also has made history by being an oil man who said we can do this with sustainability.
George understands that problem of trying to have humans and nature coexist in a very fragile way.
Early in his career, George envisioned a master-planned community where nature and people would exist in balance. Located just north of Houston, it was named The Woodlands after George's wife, Cynthia Woods Mitchell. It has been so successful that it has expanded to include over 50 square miles, multiple shopping areas, many corporate offices, and over 100,000 people.
He was the first to conceive the largest master-planned, non-urban community in the country. And he did that.
In the heart of the Woodlands, George created the Houston Advanced Research Center, a multi-university institution dedicated to sustainability practices, and the Texas Energy and Climate Change Program to help ensure a clean energy future for everyone.
He decided he was going to try this partly because he thought that we could do better. And that's been a theme of his life, we can do better.
And he's been tenacious about it. He's never given up. This guy can go for decades and go through failures to get where he wants to be. That's a rare quality in this day and time.
One of the great disappointments for George was the cancellation of a gigantic particle accelerator, already well under construction in Texas, known as the Superconducting Super Collider.
George has felt very strongly that the United States should be a leader in science. He was very disappointed when the Superconducting Super Collider was canceled, and that was to have been in Texas.
One of George's heroes was the great physicist Stephen Hawking, who had also shared George's great disappointment with the Super Collider cancellation. Soon they were discussing ways to reignite world-class physics, and Professor Hawking agreed to participate in a new program at Texas A&M, which would start a long friendship between the two men. In 2006, with George's considerable financial help, construction began on a new physics and astronomy building. George would go on to give more than $95 million to the university, with most of it going to the Department of Physics and Astronomy.
George has had, and I believe, a profound effect upon me as a person and upon my field of research within physics. And in the last 4 or 5 years, he has dramatically expanded that support to our department as a whole. and it's just about nothing short of an explosion. He's that kind of guy. He's got about the biggest, boldest vision of anybody I know in this big, bold state.
His hope was that the United States, and Texas A&M in particular, could play a leading role in the coming decades of astronomical discovery. The physics and astronomy programs are now thriving, with several advanced degrees, 10 academic chairs and professorships, and a lecture series.
Colleague after colleague is coming to me saying, "You guys are doing neat things down there at Texas A&M."
Professor Hawking greeted nearly 150 Texas A&M University faculty, staff, and students for the formal dedication of the Stephen W. Hawking Auditorium. George's next idea was to make sure that Texas A&M became a partner in the giant Magellan Telescope project.
About 10 years ago, I received a call from George Mitchell asking me to come to Houston to talk about making a gift to the giant Magellan Telescope. He asked all sorts of very good questions during the meeting. I described to George the opportunity with this telescope, the biggest telescope, larger than any in existence, and the opportunity to study the dark energy in the universe, what's causing the universe to accelerate, how much dark matter is there in the universe, what's the distribution of dark matter, the opportunity to find new planets around other stars, perhaps even find evidence for life elsewhere in the universe. And I think that just really resonated with George and his true passion for cosmology and astronomy and science and big technical projects, because there's no question, this is a big technical project, and George loved it. And George gave his first $1 million gift to GMT.
George's donations continued, allowing the team to start making the giant mirrors, which would be the most challenging optics ever undertaken.
We're trying to do something that's never been done before. We're building these giant mirrors. They're over 27 feet in diameter, and yet they've been polished to a fraction, 10,000ths of the width of a human hair.
The mirrors are the heart of the telescope. They're what collects the light from the cosmos, and they're the hardest thing. That's a thing you have to get right. Mr. Mitchell's early donations and his real leadership and vision there allowed us to tackle the most important part of the project first.
People like George love the idea that we're embarking on a journey. We don't know the answer. We don't know the destination. We're just embarking on scientific discovery. The first two mirrors in our telescope are named the George P. and Cynthia Woods Mitchell mirrors in honor of their contributions.
I think you tie them into a long line of Americans from all kind of backgrounds who simply think broadly when they wake up and see things, and the key then, and this is a hard step for most people, figure things out and then act.
When he had a vision, he would just repeat it to you. It was just, at every meeting, he would say, "We've got to do this, we've got to do this."
He's done several different kinds of things in his career, not just one thing. In every case, it's characterized by a long-range vision, by the tenacity to go after that vision regardless of barriers, challenges, and possibly failures along the way, and hiring the very best people to make it happen. And he's been successful because of that.
He has a keen sense, as we all should, that becoming who we are is something we do only through the help that we get from all the people around us and the things that make it possible for us to fulfill ourselves.
As children, we never really used the word philanthropy in our family. That wasn't a word that we even understood or knew. My parents weren't talking about philanthropy. We just learned by watching them.
They certainly lived a life, both of them, of kind of thinking about the other person, thinking about somebody who needed a leg up.
George and Cynthia have taken the pledge that Warren Buffett and Bill and Melinda Gates have taken, that they will give most of their wealth to charitable endeavors. He's just a generous and yet visionary leader in our business community and our environmental community, and we will be studying what he's done 100 years from now.
George P. Mitchell was a remarkable individual who combined vision with wisdom and persistence. Through sheer hard work and dedication, he leaves behind an extraordinary legacy. It can be said of very few people that they changed the world, but George Mitchell is among those few. I am proud to remember him as a friend. I had several happy visits to his beautiful nature reserve in Texas, where George showed me around in his pony trap. George did me and my colleagues the honor of allowing us to hold physics conferences there. I did some of my best work in the peaceful surroundings of Cook's Branch. While none of us can match George's ingenuity in geophysical discovery, I am happy to say that I still managed to beat him in wheelchair racing, even if it was only by a narrow margin. Loved, admired and respected, through his work in energy production, his humanitarian generosity, his academic curiosity and passion for inspiration, and his wonderful warm family, George P. Mitchell will live on in the hearts and minds of all who knew him.